Our interview this morning is with Harold Davey Drennan, who was born in Cleburne, Texas in December of 1942. He served in the United States Air Force from May of 1964 through April of 1998. Highest rank attained was Master Sergeant, E7. This interview is conducted at Burleson, Texas on Friday, July the 16th, 2010. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I am not related to Mr. Drennan in any way. Also in the room are Milton Gibson and Gary Burton, who operate the audio-visual equipment. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and also for Operation Remember, the City of Burleson. And with that, Dave, you can tell us your story, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dale. I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and was inducted May the 15th, 1964, after passing my physical for the draft. That tells you the reason I went to the Air Force. After basic training at Lackland Air Force Base, I was directed duty assignment to Bergstrom Air Force Base, right outside of Austin. My first assignment was a security guard for alert B-52s armed with nuclear weapons and KC-135 tankers that supported the B-52s by refueling them. While at Bergstrom, I served on President Johnson's honor guard. Every time President Johnson came in to go to his home, which was about a 30-minute helicopter ride from Bergstrom, I was on the front lines, one way or the other. While serving as honor guard, we were in Class A uniforms, doing crowd control, looking for people who had threatened the president. And also we were in fatigues in and outside of the base, looking for people who would threaten Air Force One and possible attacks. One little incident that I might share with you involving Air Force One was one day the president was coming in and he was on his final approach. Well, my post was about 4 miles from the base in a partially wooded area, and I heard gunshots go off. Well, the Air Force One was about 300 feet over my head, and so I radioed in what I heard, and I reported the gunshots, and Air Force One broke off its approach, landing, took off, and I had a convergence of local law enforcement officers, Secret Service, OSI, Office of Special Investigations for the Air Force, and numerous other county officials, law enforcement officials. Well, what had happened when it was all said and done, there was a county road not far from me, and right across the county road was a stock pond, and there were some teenage boys using a .22 rifle shooting turtles in a stock tank. Well, I thought that was pretty funny when I heard what had happened, but at the time when those shots went off, I hit the ground, expecting a threat. So anyway, as it wound up, I got called in by the Lieutenant Colonel, was our security police commander, and he called me in, and I was scared to death I'd done something wrong, because I was just a young troop. And actually, he commended me on doing my job. So I walked out of there a whole lot less nervous than I did when I went in. I volunteered for overseas duty when I was at Bergstrom and received orders to Morón Air Base in Spain, near Sevilla, Spain, in November of '65. I served as a security guard for KC-135s, the tankers. I was there about 3 months and then transferred to Zaragoza Air Base up in the northern part of Spain. And I was assigned to the base law enforcement at Zaragoza. At Zaragoza, I investigated incidents and accidents involving American military personnel. in the northern part of Spain there. There were pipeline sites for fueling and radar sites up in the Pyrenees just north of our base. So I was out quite a bit taking care of incidents, accidents, stuff like that. It was interesting because you couldn't wear a uniform off base in Spain. So I got a clothing allowance and I was dressed up like a regular guy, you know, to go investigate these accidents and stuff. And then we had several car accidents and things of that nature. And we had a few incidents that, I was called out to do. I also assisted the OSI, the Office of Special Investigations in the Air Force, investigating criminal activities. In one instance there, I'll just share one of them. We had a theft from the post office, and I helped the OSI with that investigation. And it resulted in a conviction of an airman who was stealing record albums out of the mail. So he did time in Leavenworth for that offense. My additional duties while I was there at Saragossa, I was NCIC of Security Police Training, and I was also the base NCIC of General Military Training. Now we had a small base, obviously. We had anywhere from 350 to 400 people on base. We didn't have any planes there. It was a caretaker's base, but we had to vent it to hold the base. So I was also the small arms instructor for the base. We didn't actually have a small arm instructor, AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code person there, so there was a regulation that said that a 7-level policeman could provide instruction in small arms. So that's the way we got everybody on base qualified, is because the commander designated me as the small arms instructor. So I took care of the training annually. I enjoyed playing base basketball. I was on the base basketball team, and we played military and Spanish teams in the area. And that was a lot of fun. The only bad thing that I remember, the Navy came in and docked at Barcelona and came down and brought 5 gigantic people that just wiped us out in a game. I never will forget that. I was the tallest man on our team, and I think I was about 3 inches shorter than the smallest man on their team. But that was a fun part of the assignment. I was promoted to Staff Sergeant E5 under 4 years, which was highly unusual at the time, to make E5 under 4 years. Not many people did that. And I was nominated from the 16th Air Force as Security Policeman of the Year in Europe in 1968. I didn't make it. I was in the hunt, but I didn't win it. But I was very pleased to be nominated. They sent me down to Torrejon outside of Madrid and took my picture and did a big write-up and all this stuff. And yeah, it was kind of flattering, and I enjoyed it. I considered making a career in the Air Force and extended my time to get a state assignment. So I was assigned to Norton Air Force Base, California, out San Bernardino, right close to San Bernardino, and I was a flight sergeant out there running shifts. While I was out there, I decided to go ahead and get discharged from active duty and go back to school on the GI Bill, which I did, and I joined the Air Force Reserve. That way I could stay with my first love, actually. That's what my wife calls it. The Air Force was my first love. Time passed, got married, had a family, went to school part-time, got a federal job, stayed at the Air Force Reserve for a while as a supervisory security policeman. And eventually I resigned from the reserve because I was working shift work with the federal prison system and going to school. Well, occasionally I'd have to go home and introduce myself to my wife and family because I was either one of 2 places, 3 places, in the bed, trying to rest, at work, or going to school or studying. So that took up all my time, and I couldn't get the reserve time in there. So I had a pretty good break in service. before I went back into the reserves and eventually retired. I received my degree in criminology and corrections from Sam Houston State University in 1978, and had planned on making the prison system my career. I left the prison system after nearly 15 years, went to work for the USDA Soil Conservation Service, and rejoined the Air Force Reserve and became a supervisory information specialist. I worked for 2 brigadier generals at the wing level and a bird colonel at the group level as their administrative assistant. I kind of compare it to the MASH thing, where Radar O'Reilly was working for Colonel Potter. I was Radar for 2 brigadier generals. During this time, I held positions in the reserve as additional type positions as mission support squadron's physical trainer tester. I was always into physical fitness, and I was the unit career advisor. As a unit career advisor, I worked with young airmen with their problems that came up regarding the military, and also encouraged reenlistment. I was twice nominated for Unit Career Advisor of the Year in the Air Force Reserve Command. So that was quite a compliment, I thought. I retired as a Master Sergeant with over 30 years service in April of 1998. And with that, I think that'll complete my part.
A lot of things in there. Let's see here. When you were in Spain and you couldn't wear uniforms off the base,
Right.
they gave you an allowance.
Allowance for regular clothes.
With that
Sure.
allowance, did you buy clothes there in Spain that the Spanish would wear? So you still didn't stick out like a U.S. serviceman?
Right, exactly.
Wearing something you bought in New York?
That's what they wanted. Yeah, you could buy it on the local market or at the BX. You know, we had a BX, and actually the BX where you had to buy clothes was down in Torrejon, outside of Madrid. So I didn't get down there a whole lot. So I did have to buy on the local economy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was the whole purpose. So I'd fit in with everybody. Yeah. It wouldn't stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, you're pretty obvious when you're out working a car accident and people are injured and you're working with hospital personnel and local police and things of that nature, or you're going in and rescuing a wife from a distraught military member downtown or things of that nature. They want you to blend in. They don't want to see an American uniform.
Did you speak any Spanish, Dave?
Enough to get where I wanted to go and get something to eat. That's about it. The guys that actually really learned to speak the Spanish really well got involved with the local girls. Many of them got married, and that was another one of my jobs. Is I worked security clearances for potential spouses, and some people were not allowed to leave Spain because of their bad background. So it was quite interesting.
You lived on base, I guess?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess in general, comments about the Spanish customs, anything that was maybe a whole bunch different than we think of?
Oh yes. Their way of life is much slower paced than ours. They open up their shops somewhere around 6, 7 in the morning. They close them up at that point in time about noon, and they didn't go back to work until 4 in the afternoon. And this rest time was spent in the parks, having a Cuba Libre or a little vino or something of that nature, watching the pigeons, taking care of the kids, whatever. Then they'd go back to their shops and work till about 6 or 7 at night. And that's when they started their eating. They had their meals late at night, and that's when the restaurants were all open and the clubs and things of that nature. So, yeah, they had a very laid back, slow pace of life, which wasn't as much aware. I wasn't as much aware of it until I came back here to the States, and the fast paced, it was just tension when I first came back to the States, and I realized how slow I had relaxed somewhat, you know. But it was a very pleasant tour, very pleasant. In fact, I kept on extending to stay over there as long as I could.
They drink a lot of local wine, or
Yes.
maybe not a lot, but they drink local wine, Spanish wine, I guess.
Oh yes, and sangria is one of the favorite beverages over there, and it's made out of wine and fruit, and they drink them out of what they call botas, the sheepskin things that you turn them up and let the stream flow into your mouth. We did a little of that when we
You
celebrated.
practice a little bit of that?
Yeah. When we celebrated our bowling championship, we'd go to the end of the road, we called it. And the end of the road was a little Mexican bar restaurant down the end of the road, and we'd go out there and celebrate. And I got more than my share of sangria on my shirt on occasion. But it was fun. It was a fun time.
I guess their diet, beef, beans, rice.
Actually, that's pretty close to right. One thing that I'll tell you that kind of surprised me, they don't eat corn over there. Corn is for cattle and livestock to eat. The Spanish don't eat corn, or they didn't at that point in time. And I thought that was unusual because I usually thought of Spanish food as like our Mexican, Tex-Mex, you know, made out of corn and everything. You don't see that over there. They like paella, which is a rice with fish and other things like that. But you're right, fish and rice and corn, but corn is one of the things they didn't eat that I was used to eating. You know.
Small arms training. You were appointed the base small arms instructor.
Right.
Guy. Everybody on the base have to get qualified?
That's right, once a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and officers had to qualify with revolvers. At the time, we used 38 revolvers. Up there, using 9mm now. And then everybody else had to qualify with, at one time it was the M2 carbine, and then we got the M16s in. So everybody had to qualify with the M16s. So that's the main ones that I used. You know.
You got married after you came back to the States.
Right.
Okay. And went to school on a GI Bill.
Yes, I did.
Actually, you used a lot of that Air Force training when you went to school. You're a criminology major, I think you said?
That's right. I got my job with the federal prison system because of my police background in the military.
You recommend it for folks today going to U.S. military?
Absolutely. I think everybody physically and mentally fit should serve at least 2 years in the military. It instills a sense of discipline and there's a maturation process that occurs when you are able to go in and do a competent job in the military.
And I'm sure you saw some tough situations in the vocation, the area of the Air Force you were in, really. You saw
yes.
some bad actors.
Yes, sir, I did. Yeah, I've had I had to help restrain a guy that was going after his wife with a knife one time, and that was difficult. And then I've investigated several automobile accidents. We had, like I said earlier, guys in the Pyrenees Mountains had come down do a little bit too much celebrating, try to get back, drive too fast, have bad car wrecks, a lot of blood and guts on occasion, not a lot. I investigated one accident where we had a joint U.S. military Spanish military exercise, and the Army came in to our base and we housed them temporarily. But during one occasion, a guy horse playing took a .45 out, thought it was empty, aimed it at his best friend, pulled the trigger and blew his face off, and that was difficult to deal with. But that was part of our responsibilities, is dealing with that kind of stuff. And yes, there's some of the things that I didn't enjoy at all.
Yeah. Were drugs a problem, Dave?
We had a few problems with drugs where I was.
Were they a problem with the Spanish? I suppose today they have the same problems we have, but when you were there, were drugs a problem in the Spanish community, their culture?
Not as much as I thought. We had more drug problems over here in the States than they had, I believe. But there were problems. The people on our base were so close that we had few problems. They didn't last long. If somebody was, caught with a little marijuana or something like that, they were generally disciplined and sent back to work. We didn't have any hardcore drugs like heroin or cocaine or anything like that. But on the other bases in Spain, in working with the OSI, I had contact with people who were working with problems like that down at Torrejon and Morón and some of the other little sites. But at my base, it wasn't a big problem.
Let me go back to where you started, Bergstrom. They have B-52 stationed down there?
They did.
They did at Bergstrom.
I guarded them.
Yeah. Okay. and now I guess the only place I know is over at Bossier City.
Yeah.
They still have 52s over there.
Mm-hmm.
Being on the honor guard for the President of the United States. You said you were in Class A's or fatigues out in the boonies where the kids were shooting in the stock tank.
Right.
When you were in the honor guard, I mean, you were there when the red carpet, when LBJ walked right down there?
Yes, sir.
Chrome helmet,
The whole bit.
all the ribbons,
Yep.
spit shine?
Right. And
Or
like I
just-
said,
well, maybe patent leather, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were spit shine, patent leather, whatever. But our primary responsibility when we were dressed up, were to look for people who had made threats against the president. And we actually had some of those try to infiltrate, and they were caught. And
So there, of course, you worked closely with OSI
Yes.
and probably FBI, Secret Service, all those
right.
secret
And
guys.
if you were on the honor guard, they went through a selection process. You had to be so tall and the physical requirements, as well as you had to have outstanding record, a good APRs, Chairman Performance Reports, what that stands for.
President ever pay any attention to you guys at all?
No,
No, just walk straight down the line?
he wanted to get to his place down near Fredericksburg, I believe that's where he was.
Yeah, down on Pedernales.
Yeah, on the Pedernales, that's right. So he'd come off Air Force One and go down there, and Air Force One would stay there, and we'd guard Air Force One while he was at home. And they actually got a pack of cigarettes off of Air Force one time with the presidential seal on it. I thought that was a big deal.
Still have them?
No, I don't, unfortunately.
I guess Lady Bird would be with him?
Occasionally, yeah. If she wasn't already at home,
Didn't have the dog with him, did he?
Tell you the truth, I don't remember.
Of the two, the chromed helmet, the ribbons, and the Class A's, and the spit polish, or being out there in the boonies guarding the perimeter, so to speak, which would you prefer?
Well, I'd rather be dressed up and with the crowd than out there in the boonies. I never did like being out there by myself, you know, looking for things that are not supposed to be there. So, but I did, you know, I did what I had to do. It was fun, you know, we would go through a pre-meeting, a pre-arrival of the president, and they would show us pictures of these people who had brought threats against the president. And then we'd be debriefed by the OSI, the Secret Service, people like that. So we had more to think about when we were dressed up than when we were out on a perimeter post. All we were doing out there is looking for people who was trying to shoot down the plane. And when we were dressed up, we were looking for people trying to shoot the president. You know, so that,
Air Force One at that time was what I would call a 707. I
Yeah,
don't know what it was in
that's
Air
right.
Force designator. I
Yeah.
don't know. But it was before the 747, so it was
Right.
a smaller airplane.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
basically the same thing as a tanker, you know, KC-135, but basically the same plane.
Did you ever fly in your time in the Air Force?
No, just on moving back and forth from station to station, and then sometimes when I was on leave. I got to see a lot of Western Europe when I was over in Spain, so I enjoyed that.
We've talked to Air Force guys before who never flew, and we've talked to sailors who never went to sea. It's some of the things we hear are pretty interesting.
Right.
But I don't have any more questions, sir.
Okay.
You certainly had a distinguished career. You maybe didn't make the final cut, but you were certainly recommended and commended for a lot of things, and had a really great career. So we thank you for the time this morning, sir. We thank you for your time in the service, time you gave to the country. And I think we're done.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Dave.